Good job.
So we're back. We should be back up and running. Hey, I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one because I really, fear would have gotten me before. Have said, don't even try that. You can't do that while you're in the middle of a show. You're gonna screw it up. But we're back on. We're recording. I wanted to show you this, Melissa. This is the countries that are logged in.
Oh my goodness.
We've got Austria. We've got Southampton, United Kingdom.
Wow.
We've got India. We've got Indonesia.
Wow.
Flagstaff, Arizona. So it's cool to see the different people that are tuned in, and we've reestablished our Ustream, so I'm excited about that. We are talking about 5280 High School. This is a project that I found out about through the Surrounded by Sound Music Festival that happened at the Capitol Building this last September. And during Recovery Month. And when I found out about I guess I learned a lot more about it by digging into your website. And this is Melissa Mouton, the founder of 5280 High School. I guess the idea of a high school that would provide recovery for young addicts or even potential addicts. Is there something within your program that can maybe assess or find out if somebody isn't an addict but might be heading down that path?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about addiction in adolescence, it's a lot more gray than it is in adulthood. Some kids know they're an addict. I mean, it's very black and white. Their lives and their patterns look very similar to what you see in adult addicts. But there are a lot of kids who aren't quite sure, and you have to be careful in the labels that you use and the type of treatment that you choose, because it's different with adolescents than it is for adults. And some adolescents go through troublesome times and then they grow out of it and they're fine and they never were an addict. And so it's really important that you don't put a negative self-image on these students, because then they may actually fulfill these expectations and go down that path. So it's a balancing act for sure.
Do you find that in talking with your potential students, do you find and you kind of already answered this question, because you said something that was very, very refreshing to me, encouraging to me, that there's a majority or the majority of students and young people that are wanting to live life, and the idea of substance use disorder or substance use is not a part of their lives. But is there, with those kids that are experimenting, is there a criteria, a set of questions that you might be able to ask that they would be able to ask themselves and honestly? Because the reason I asked that, Melissa, is because if somebody were to ask me when I was that age, your drinking is not normal, and it's not. You might be heading down a path. I might have said something as flippant as "Oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic," or I might have thought to myself, I would have gotten mad or angry, saying, "You don't know what you're talking about. This is just what I do. And I'm just having fun. And when I graduate, I get serious about life. And is there a criteria you can?
There's not a hard and fast criteria, but I think what typically there is a. So can I take up the 12 steps?
Oh yes,
okay,
please.
So there is a version of the 12 steps that teens use that it takes the extremes down. So for example, the first step, I admitted I was powerless and my life had become unmanageable. So they add on something like and at least a part of my life has become unmanageable. So they make it a little bit less extreme so that adolescents can really grapple with, because most adolescents are not homeless. Most adolescents haven't ruined their financial histories. And so there is an element of like, and they're young and they're just not, their brains aren't matured.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's not healthy, really. It's not healthy to tell a 15-year-old kid who's struggling that you don't have, your life is a managed one, you can't manage it. Like there's nothing positive that can come from that. So
Right.
so
It's too early.
it's just too early. It's not developmentally appropriate. And so there is a version of the 12 steps, and I don't have it in front of me now, but it is a beautiful version where it has the same type of ideas, but it's in a less extreme manner. And it helps them really kind of come to a personal recognition that, okay, I agree that my drug use does affect my relationship with my parents and my schoolwork. Okay, well, I'll give you that. And so that's at least a part where they can start to make some progress. You know, it's just that they can acknowledge that. So.
Well, and the idea, yeah, you know, because we just kind of talked about it, you know, making mistakes is a part of growing up. And hopefully it's not a catastrophic mistake that will hurt them or somebody else in the process. But again, you know, it's a part of growing up. You know, we try so hard to protect everything, and many things are great. You know, from car seats to, you know, the car seats that are adaptable all the way up until you're 16 now, you know, and those are good things. But then, because we forget all the way back, and you know, I learned to ride a bike without a helmet. And I never rode a bike with a helmet. My son never rode a bike without a helmet, you know, and so these are things that change over time, and yet we still have to understand that part of growing up, the process of growing up, is making mistakes and having caring people there to help us through those. Yeah, but you know, the idea of you know, I keep coming back to this, Melissa. I'm wondering. I think the big question is if somebody would have had a way of saying, well, do you think you're drinking too much? Do you think it's a problem? Do you think hiding it from your parents is kind of leading down a wrong path? The church was certainly there and tried to help with that. But I mean, I think that's a without dedicated and educated professionals within the church to be able to handle that in the right way, it's too much.
Yeah.
It's out of their expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially for kids who struggle with addiction early in age, mental health is a very common situation. So you do want professionals that are trained for that, for sure.
Does the idea of social upbringing, as far as married parents, unmarried parents, and does that play into the idea of early substance use disorder?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I do know that the demographic that struggles with the harder drugs are those growing up from the upper class. Because they have access to that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So there's the trend there.
I'm pulling up another commercial real quick that we're gonna have these commercials, and then we're gonna do another radio segment where we're gonna dive into this this idea of the whole not only the substance use disorder, but the idea of how the Summit program deals with that. Now, do you have obviously students within your educational system here that are not at risk, or even they mingle in with your Summit program?
The Summit program is this program within the school, so it's a smaller program. We're estimating 10 to 20% of our students will be in Summit, and the rest will just be in the mainstream.
Right.
Project.
And how do you integrate that to where, or is it just not? It's not like a taboo like anymore.
Well, we're trying to figure it out. I mean, that's part of what we're trying to build, is we're doing something totally new here.
Completely new.
But we think that this, as designed, I mean, my ultimate vision is to change the narrative around mental health and addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that these aren't people to be put in a back room or over here in that school, but these are people with, if they get the help that they need, they have skills that all of us need: the ability to communicate, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to face our emotions, to reach out for help when we need it, to be a good friend, to communicate, to conflict. Like all those skills that you learn as a part of recovery,
Mm-hmm.
those are good for all kids to learn.
Absolutely. Well, and the funny thing is, I remember, you know, a person that was close to me growing up had fallen in with the wrong crowd, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crowd that was partying and was using drugs, alcohol, and getting into trouble. It was leading to getting into trouble. And there was a group of his friends that were more on, I can't come up with the word right now. They were wanting to strive and just enjoy life and a circle of friends that was doing things the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretty much intervened with this guy and said, you need to come over here and see how we do things.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that that's really going to be a positive part.
It's huge.
The peers.
It's huge. Absolutely.
That's exciting to me because I think that plus the idea of, the whole idea of the project-based learning where you're out in the community, you're actually living life. You're kind of living life more than just going to school. It's going to make a huge difference
Gives kids a purpose.
Yeah. And then once if you can break that cycle of addiction early, oh man, that's nothing short of a miracle. That's miracle working. Well, we've got one other commercial here, and then we're going to get into our next segment where time is going by fast. But I do want to talk. I definitely want to get into this the summit program with the radio.
Sure, yeah.
So now, how long have you been in recovery, Melissa? Do you mind saying?
4.5 years.
About 4.5 years? Excellent.
I thought about this to start 5280. I thought about that very early on, but I didn't commit to it for almost a year and a half, just because it was too crazy. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then finally, after a year and a half, I couldn't resist it.
I find that. Well, we'll talk about more about that in a minute. We're gonna go live, and I've got all systems rolling. And see, I did it again.
And keep up with what I'm up to. Until then, go out and create something.
You're listening to Conscious Conversations on KUHSdenver.com. I want to thank all of you that are coming in on live Facebook. Karen, my friend Karen, who is a former employee down at Live at Jack's, is now relocated to Atlanta, and we appreciate you listening from Atlanta. I got thinking about this, Karen. It's late there. What you doing up this time of night? But I'm loving it. So I appreciate you listening in, and we'll hopefully see you soon and hear more from you on Conscious Conversations. I'm sure I'm going to hear from the Summeralls and also Tom and Perry and our very, very loyal following here on Conscious Conversations. Speaking with just delighted to have Melissa Mouton, founder of 5280 High School, in studio with me tonight. We have listeners from Finland that are logged in tonight. I love it when this happens because I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce that, but it's a place in Mexico, so we'd like to thank our listeners from Mexico, from Turkey, from Girona, Spain, Lhasa, Germany, also San Francisco, Jakarta, Indonesia, and so many others all around the world. Thank you so much for joining us on Conscious Conversations this evening. What a wonderful night it is in the Mile High City of Denver, Colorado, where we are based, and We're talking about a truly unique and very, very special program. It's a new high school called 5280 High School in the Denver area. And I'm with Melissa Mouton, which is their founder. And one of the special things, the most special things about this high school is the idea of incorporating the idea of a recovery program. And it's called the Summit Program. And I wanted to have you tell us a little bit about that, Melissa.
Sure. Yeah, the Summit program is definitely one of the most unique aspects of 5280. And it essentially provides students in recovery a place to go to school that's safe. What many, many examples have shown us is that when students who struggle with addiction early, they may go to treatment, they may get clean and sober. When they return back to the high school that they attended prior, all the negative influences that run their life will lead them back right to use again. It's 9.7 out of 10 times the student will not be successful. And so what the Summit program is a place for students to finish their high school education in a supportive environment among peers who are also in recovery. And so it's a very tight-knit group of kids who are all walking the path of recovery, and they're finishing their high school at the same time.
You know, and I think it's such a wonderful, the things that you brought up are so important. First of all, safe. Second, peers. And the idea that, you know, when young people, it seems to me like when you make them do something, if you have the power to make them do it, it will happen. They will do it. But until they embrace it and say, this is a path that I want, then it's probably not going to stick.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's funny because it's very much that way with adults. You know, and it's been my experience in recovery as well. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of people and been blessed with being able to be there for them. But you can always tell. You can tell when there's a certain point when somebody has made a decision that, you know what, I want this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know that you have the opportunity to be that helping hand that will make an impact.
Absolutely, yeah. I think teens are the same way, but they're also a lot of times they're hesitant, just like adults are. And so you have to be careful with your culture, as you know, as the whole program. You have to make sure that the ones who are not bringing positive vibes to the community are not in the majority. And so you have to make sure that there's a healthy, thriving community, and you can pull up a few kids who maybe don't want to be in the school, or maybe their parents forced them to go there. You can pull them up because they're kids, and they'll see what's going on, and they'll want it, and then they'll slowly come around. But you do have to be careful to make sure that you have that positive overtone.
I agree. And now, and with that said, Melissa, it's like how it's based on, and I know you talked about the idea of a different type of, or different wording of 12 steps that's kind of geared, customized to young people and teenagers especially, which I think is dynamite, because it's proven. The 12 steps are proven. You can make them in any way, in any which way that you can, they work. And so this is amazing. But with that said, you've got to do it. How do you do it in an environment where you're obviously not going to, or are you going to be drug testing, or what's the accountability?
Yeah, we have elected to not drug test now. We don't. That may change in the future, but right now we're not. And the rationale behind that is because if kids are going to use drugs or drink, they know how to get around the drug tests. They're very smart. They're very entrepreneurial. And so it's almost like it's a waste of money because they know that they're going to get around it, or they're going to use something that doesn't show up on the drug test. So there's that. But secondly, the community is tight enough, and the counselors on staff and the recovery coaches on staff know the students so well that they can pick up when a kid starts to detour for the worse. And so it's really, they know if something's going south, they're going to know before a drug test would ever show it. And so it's almost like, um, it's just, it's hasn't been proven successful. And I've talked to other recovery schools across the nation. They've given me that advice, that that's what they do. And then it also, the culture is important, and you have to be careful not to create a punitive
Mhm.
culture. And it's, you have to value transparency and honesty and
Mhm.
openness. And so drug testing kind of attacks that culture a little bit, in that,
I couldn't agree more. You're right on it from just an outsider layman's. Well, I think it's so important that that idea of, what we're building here is we're building honesty and trust, and we're building the idea that, you can the one person you at the end of the day you need to be honest with is yourself, and your higher power, and hopefully you can develop a relationship with a higher power that will allow you to be honest with yourself. The I wonder, um, do you are when you're hiring teachers, um, will you be looking for maybe some teachers in recovery that will be able to relate and or assist in this particular aspect of the curriculum?
not necessarily. We have taken the approach where we really want to make sure that our educators are strong educators,
Mm-hmm.
and our recovery staff is strong in recovery. And I think where schools sometimes get it wrong is they have people doing things that are outside of their typical scope of practice. And when you blur the lines there, both education and recovery are going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may have teachers in recovery. In fact, a lot of teachers in recovery have approached me wanting to work there.
Mm-hmm.
And while that is a factor when we're going to be hiring, we first and foremost want to ensure that we have top-notch educators
Yeah.
that can provide a strong education for our kids.
And not necessarily, I mean, Melissa, it's been a long time since, I would have filled out a job application, but I mean, do they even ask that anymore? I mean, do you
They
ask?
ask about criminal convictions.
Mhm.
That's
But
it.
but not necessarily drug or alcohol use.
Not for teachers.
Yeah.
For medical professionals, yes. And like bus drivers, stuff like that, but
Right.
not teachers.
Do the young people? I'm kind of a little bit all over the map, so forgive me for that. But I really am intrigued by the idea of it being incorporated within the school day and the school year. Is there? I mean, as I envision this, it's not like a high school club. It's an actual part of the program. And would there be meetings, like 12-step meetings, that they would attend?
Yeah, the way it's designed is the summit program is actually designed in two different levels. There's a pre-summit program and a summit program. And when a student first joins 5280, they're in the pre-summit program, which means they're not really integrated into the normal daily classes. They are they're in a room with other people who are in the pre-summit program, and they could be in there for a couple months. And it's a time for kids to start to make educational gains, because a lot of these students have been out of school for 6 months or a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a time for them to start gaining some credits that they've missed out on, to start to integrate into recovery programming. But we also need to get to know them and see how they're going to contribute to the community, and see if this is a good fit, and
Right.
need to make sure that they want to be there. And so after that 2-month period, if they're showing they're involved in the program, they're showing that they're completing educational work, then they move into the traditional summit program, which they are integrated into the normal classes.
Do you think, and again, without having, now you witnessed where you worked on this in San Diego when you were there, but is there a stigma between, say a young person in recovery and somebody, and say the other students or peers around?
What I've tended to experience is the reverse stigma. Is
Oh.
parents and kids in recovery feel like the kids who are not in recovery are dangerous or, you know.
No, I didn't expect you to
And
say
it's
that,
not
Melissa.
stigma. Stigma isn't the right
Yeah.
word, but there is a hesitation
Wow.
there. And there, and the reverse, there is reverse stigma.
Yeah.
And if a parent doesn't want their child around people in recovery, then maybe 5280 isn't the school for them. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions because when people don't know about recovery, they know about addiction.
Right.
So they think addiction when they don't know that recovery means, oh no, you're not
Right.
drinking, you're not doing drugs, you're actually living a lifestyle that you would want for your child. So
Well, it's a part of, and I had to glance over to make sure we were still recording on our Ustream, but it's a part of the idea of, okay, it's one of those things as a parent, or uh, say a person in the community, if you think you're going to run away from the idea that there's addiction at all ages, you're wrong. But if you look at the idea, and it comes kind of full circle to what we were talking about early on tonight, Melissa, was the idea, okay, so we know there's addiction, but what positive can come from addiction is recovery. And the only way we can achieve that is by getting it out in the open.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, all the parents out there in Denver know that the large traditional high schools are just filled with drugs and alcohol. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation, unfortunately. And so we're actually a school that's trying to deal with it and much more transparent about it. And so I think the safety of our school community is much higher than it would be at a typical school. It's kind of it's something that people don't think about a lot, but
Mhm.
it's true. So.
Well, and I think, like you say, it's like if we get it, by getting it out in the open, when we talk about, and even the influence that the young people who are committed to recovery, that they can have not only on fellow, students that are in recovery, but also on the general student body, and also the community in general, the sky's the limit. And to address something like this and talk about it and decriminalize the whole idea of it, just say, look, this is part of life we need to address. And if we can arrest this at this point, it's going to make a difference.
Well, in our early research, it's been a year and a half or so, we talked to a bunch of people in the community, and they said that not all the parents said this, but we were shocked by how many said that they don't want their child growing up in a sheltered sense, so that they went off to college unaware of the challenges of life. And they felt that while the child was living at home with them, they could protect them and educate and guide them enough so that they wanted them to be exposed to challenges that other people face, because they could help them navigate through that rather than not experiencing it and then going off to college when they're not coming home every night and the
Right.
parents don't know what they're experiencing. And so we were kind of shocked by the positive responses we got about that.
Yeah, and it's like, again, it's reality. I had friends in high school that were some were pretty straight laced and driven for success and driven for achievements, and got to college and partied themselves out of school and into a problem, um, and it was sad because it was almost a thing where they didn't see it coming, and that kind of thing is something that, if they know the realities and see realities, and quite honestly get invested creatively in these programs and these projects that they're doing, they're not going to be even thinking about that.
Yeah.
And and if they don't think about it, then we find that addictive personality people are very creative. And
absolutely.
So two things. One thing I had to ask you quickly. First thing I had to ask you was, when this gets started, are you going to be in administration basis, or are you going to do classroom or both?
I'm going to be the principal.
Awesome.
I couldn't do both. That would
Yeah.
be way too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but that's going to be that's enough.
Yeah.
But what a great a great place to start, and based on your experience. And I had another question that I wanted to ask you, and it's left me, but I'm hoping it'll come back to me.
Okay.
The idea of this school, and we wanted to come back to one of the things that we'll be talking about before we get too far along and get to where we have to close. One of the things is we talk about personal wellness, and there's a pie chart here, sort of a pie chart made of circles, and it has to do with emotional. This has to do with the idea of personal wellness, emotional, occupational, intellectual, environmental, spiritual, physical, and social. And that's a great chart.
Yes.
I mean, that chart really covers it
Mm-hmm.
in depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, schools, we don't think about any of that. It's all academic.
Mm-hmm.
And recently there's been moved to include more mental wellness and emotional wellness. And it because we realize, like, especially in some of our inner cities and places where kids are struggling with poverty and trauma, that if you don't deal with the social and the emotional wellness, then the academic gains won't be there. So it's kind of been this roundabout way to promote what is inherently good for kids. So I think we have kind of this window in time right now where we're pushing something that I think the nation is ready to accept it, because they know that kids today are not as happy as they should be. They're way more anxious. They're depressed. Suicides are on the rise, and Colorado has some of the worst
I've heard
mental health
that.
statistics when you compare it state by state. And so I think we're, thinking about wellness in a holistic way it just makes sense, really.
When we come back, we'll probably have a few more minutes to talk with Melissa. This is Silent Night. Merry Christmas. I hope I'm the first one that said that.
You are the first one that told me that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I usually I would say we're getting ready to get.
No, it's perfect. It ended
but-
perfect.
So we're still recording over here. That's a good thing. But we've been talking about this, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about this because this really was cool to me too. When you think about all the things that make up a healthy lifestyle, or we talk about there's so much unhappiness. There's so much unfulfillment, and based on maybe what society considers as being important, as far as financial, as far as fame, that we live in a society where fame is very important, and yet there's tons of depression. There's and many times there is chemical imbalances that are very real that can cause bipolar depression and things like this, and that needs to be addressed beyond recovery, right, Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the idea of, okay, how do we find a way to live happy and joyful, happy, joyous, and free, as we say in the rooms of recovery, but addressing all these things. That just said, I went, whoa, that's really putting it out there.
Yeah.
Because that's, and the idea. Can you touch on briefly on how you can how you address the spiritual within a school system that it fights tooth and nail anything that is spiritual?
Well, schools don't exclude spirituality. They just exclude particular religions over other religions. So,
Right.
and if it's student led, you really can do anything.
Hmm.
The issue is that adults in the building can't kind of proselytize or affect the children. So, honestly, meditation, 12-step meetings, any sort of student led religious club, anything like that is totally fine. As long as it's not, it doesn't coerce kids or doesn't promote one religion over the others in an extreme way. So.
But now within the can a teacher, or say within a charter school, in like your school basis, can a teacher say well, it's been my experience that that seeking spiritual guidance is a bit of a value to my life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And so they can guide and mentor that way as well.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Because I really feel, those of you that have heard my show and listened to the show realize how I place such high importance on the idea of as we say in the recovery rooms, a higher power, or a God of our own understanding.
Mhm.
And that is huge to recovery.
Mhm.
And for young people to find this, I think they're looking for that beyond what their parents say, so they can have that personal relationship and feel confident with that. I think is huge.
Well, teens, that's their brain that's what it's trying to figure out is, who am I in the world? Why am I in the world? And
Mhm.
how do I relate to things around me? Like they ponder that existence of God more so, and spirituality. Like their brains are developing in that way.
Hmm.
So it's appropriate for them to question and to ask and to wonder about those things.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, and again, and we come to be able to, and with their experiences of interacting with people in the community of all different beliefs, the diversity that they'll encounter within an inner city like
Yeah.
even in Denver. I mean, Denver's diverse in a good way,
Yeah.
and there's much to be learned from the elderly all the way down uh, to the young people. So, well, I'm encouraged. I love it.
Well, I mean, a large part of the spirituality that we bring in is every morning, the first class of every day is kids. It's a peer-led check-in of how they're doing, and so it's
Wow, that's huge.
it's simple. It's so simple, but it's huge because it allows the students to just express where they're at, how they're doing, and allows everybody to hear where they're at, so they can keep them accountable, get to know them more. You can speak
Man,
words of advice into somebody's life. I mean, it just makes sense.
say that. What is it called again?
We call it intentional community, but it's our first 35 minutes of every day. So we do that, and then we launch into classes. And then the very last class of the day is where we focus on the other parts of that ring, the physical, the social, the mental, and it's electives.
Yeah,
It could be sports. You could have a basketball.
I was just going to ask you about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It could be sports. It could be sewing. It could be journaling. It could be 12-step meeting,
Do you
chess, anything.
will there be band? I mean, in the future, and
We don't have a band class,
right?
but during that time, if there are students that want to do a guitar
Yeah.
jam class, then that's what it is.
Yeah.
The idea is that we don't have to be over the academic. A well-balanced life has other things in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and see, this is something that I hear a lot. I got to make sure I'm keeping with this, Melissa.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I hear in the one of the things I hear in the rooms of recovery sometimes, and sometimes it's from the long timers, or old timers, forgive me, that you say, well, I go to church, but they never let me share in church, and they never let me talk, and I'm thinking like, and the basis of getting a chance to share in a meeting is a big deal. It lets you know, and the others in the group know how you feel, even if it's as simple as saying, you know, I don't feel good today. I just nothing's going right today. I think it's an important part of it promotes student to student saying, well, maybe that one student would go up to the other student and say, well, let's talk about it. That kind of thing. The church would, they say they don't get that in the church. But I know that the church has groups and forums where people can go and express themselves. But maybe the church uh, can work on this as a basis. I know the church is willing, and when I say the church, that's a large generalization. But it is that you say that. I want to make sure we talk about this on our last segment, because I think that's huge. To start off a day like that, free your mind. Sometimes me personally, if I'm in a recovery meeting, sometimes just turns the whole day around.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, we've got clubs, we've got music. Now, how are the with the sports?
Yeah.
Will they be able to compete in a league?
Yeah, and our sports are going to evolve as we grow larger.
Right.
Because our first year we're just going to have ninth grade plus our summit program. Our summit program will be 9 through 12 immediately.
Mhm.
But until we get a larger student body, our sports may be on the slim side as we grow.
Are you looking for what location are you looking for? Are you looking downtown?
We are close to working out a location at 9th and Broadway. And
Awesome.
that's a temporary location for 2 years as
Okay.
we build, and then we're looking for a more permanent location down off of South Logan. So
Okay.
yeah, we're working all the details are still being worked out.
Yeah. Well, I'm very used to that. That's the story of my life as far as being in the music business and being we being in the club business. We were based on. We were down at the Lower Platte Valley for a number of years, and then moved up to the pavilions, and so I know how build out but the exciting part
It's
of being on
exciting.
the ground floor of something like that must be incredibly fulfilling.
It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking, but it's exciting. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, and we'll have a chance to within your own recovery. Do you still attend meetings or?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely.
and
It's a
this-
lifestyle for me.
Mhm. And that's one of those things that I've noticed. The people that I know what it was. I thought about it. I thought what it was, and it's cool. People in recovery are extremely creative people.
Absolutely.
And so for you to come up with the idea of this, and to propose this is a big undertaking. This isn't just saying, well, I'd like
Start
to.
business.
Yeah, I mean this isn't or even like even because I've been a part of running like a festival, like a concert festival, like a one-day festival, and that's year round to try to get that all together, the licenses, the porta potties, the security, and that can be. But this is a society changing, community enriching endeavor. I mean, it must have been, you must have had to bat it around for a while, and where did you come to the actual commitment? I'm gonna do this.
Absolutely. It took me about 18 months from when I first had the idea to when I actually committed to it. And it seemed just so different. I didn't see myself doing this. This was never planned,
Hmm.
but I feel like I've been designed to do it. So
Well, it's like a calling.
yeah, exactly. It's definitely calling. So I when I finally committed to it, I quit the field of medicine and got a job as a teacher in Denver Public Schools and started preparing.
Really?
Yep.
Where did you teach?
I was at a school called CLA. It's an
Okay.
alternative school.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, I'm a DPS kid myself,
Oh, okay.
and
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Ash Grove Elementary and McMean Elementary over on southeast Denver, and then I ended up going to Place Junior High, and then to George Washington High School.
Oh.
And so, but then the DPS was well, my mom taught in the DPS, and it was a great school system. It was a great upbringing. I had all the you know, I had all the things right there for me, and the idea of addiction just crept up on me from an early age, of actually abusing from first time I don't know. I mean, when you're that young, you're not drinking socially,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because, and this is important. And then I want to do. Let's see, got to put one other funny thing in here. And then we'll do our last segment, and I'll get you out on the road because it's late. Um, but here's what strikes me, and I'm wondering if this is a part of your intention or not. I'll bet you that this is going to be a model for not only other schools within Denver, but I'll bet nationally and if not worldwide.
I hope so. I definitely think this is the first, and we'd like to have more
Yeah.
for sure. Spread it out. Yeah.
I mean, and this would be an opportunity, to change. You know, we talk about, sometimes we talk about wanting to make a change in the world, or but and sometimes well, how do we go about that?
Mm.
I can't think of a better way than education of our young people. That to me is like the foundation.
Well, good because it's really hard work. So we better be doing it for a good reason.
Yeah, I'll
For
bet you.
sure.
Give me an idea of how many hours a week you put in on it.
I don't even know.
I haven't.
I
I
don't even
totally know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I totally know. It's just like it's like one of those things. It's just, I mean, if you're able to set your phone down for for an hour while it charges, that's a miracle. I'm sure.
I know. Well, I don't know. People, there's a phenomenon in kids today where like if you don't text back, they view it as like a negative thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have that, so I certainly don't feel the need to get right back to people.
I'm with you. Well, we're gonna be live for our last segment,
All
and
right.
we'll say goodnight, but we'll talk about. And that's Let It Snow on Conscious Conversations. Man, I'm getting into it. I said Merry Christmas before anybody did, or not. At least I don't know that for sure, but I'm hoping that is. And we had Silent Night on, and let's see, we had Let It Snow. So we're full blown into the holiday season, and I think it's a good thing because I love the holidays. I know some people struggle through the holidays, and for them, my heart goes out to you, and my prayers and thoughts will be with you because I know that it's real, and it's something that is hard. But I hope that you can find something to be happy about and something to be joyful about this holiday season. It's been an amazing night talking about an endeavor of education with my new friend Melissa Mouton, who is the founder and soon-to-be principal of 5280 High School. What an unbelievable endeavor! We've been talking about it, and I was telling Melissa that to me, we talk about doing something in life that will change the world, that will change our community, and the way we live, and I believe this is exactly that. So thank you for doing this. I'm excited about it. Um, I brought you very small donation to give
Thank
to
you
be a
so
part of
much.
the this wonderful endeavor. And but I wanted to, but before we say goodnight, we were talking about something that on that I had to get to, and this is something that we do in the recovery, the rooms of recovery, but it's not. This isn't modeled after that. This is something that you call intentional community, and it starts the first 30 minutes of every school day. I want you all to check this out, hear about this, because I think it's groundbreaking.
Well, thank you. Intentional community is the first class of every day, and it's a peer-led time where kids can simply check in with each other. And in small groups, they just share about how they're doing, and they can hear how everybody's doing. They can give them words of advice. They can support them. They can share their experience. It's just a time to say, hey, how's everybody doing today before we go into classes? And it really, I think adults, when they witness kids engaging in this way, can be blown away because kids, even teenagers, even though they're still kids, they really can engage with each other in a very mature, emotional way.
And and I'm doing something else while Melissa was telling about this, but it means so much to me. We sometimes in the rooms of recovery, I've had I've watched people, and I've experienced it myself, where people will come in and say, I didn't want to come in here today. I didn't want to come in here, and I wasn't going to share. I'll tell you that I wasn't going to share it, but then I forced myself, and I just did, and I just said, got it out, and the sense of relief. It was like being able to start the day fresh. And I think for giving your students that as the foundation of the beginning of a day is going to be um, incredibly productive.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I want to thank you so very, very much for being a part of my show. I know when we first talked, we were talking about, well, we've got a lot we can talk about, but I knew you were thinking, well, 2 hours is a long time, and 2 hours goes by kind of fast.
It flew by.
And the thing about it is I want you to know how much I appreciate you coming out, especially late on a Sunday night, but also what you're doing with this school. I plan on following the success of it very closely. Would love to volunteer anytime if you have any students that are interested in music and want to get involved in something like that. I'd love to work with you on that.
That'd be great.
But what now? Will it be that? Lastly, I had to ask this: is it a year-round curriculum, or is it?
We're not currently year-round. We kept with the standard DPS calendar, and that was something we thought about. And ideally, I think it would be year-round, but our thought was, a DPS, this is just not the right time to try to push that. So it's
Right.
unusual enough in DPS that we thought it would be a challenge for us to do.
And with the whole idea, and I know you're aware of this, and I'm sure you're looking forward to it as well, because I'm sure there's things that you've laid out as a plan and a format that you're thinking to yourself, well, we may have to deviate from this and find out what's working and what's not working, and let it fall into place as it goes along.
Absolutely. This whole project is a work in progress.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult, and you have to roll with the punches, and also you can't predict. I mean, it's such a long range project that sometimes you can't predict where you'll be.
Well, I highly recommend that that you go to their website. It's 5280highschool.org. It's an excellent website. It's very, very interactive. It's very well written, and the concept, it's very logical to go through. You can find out how you can donate, and this is such an important part of any kind of process like this. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen on somebody saying, "Oh man, this is a great idea." You have to get behind it, and this is something that I know in my heart and soul is so worthwhile to get behind. So find out how you can donate, and send your donations in so that we can start this high school off with a foundation, a solid foundation, and make sure that it's has the opportunity to be around for a long time.
Thank you. That would be great. Thank you.
So again, that website is 5280highschool.org. Melissa Mouton is my guest tonight. She is the founder of this high school, and they are. Is it okay to say where you're going to be tentatively located?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
The first location is going to be near 9th and Broadway, which is in the heart of I'm not sure we'd call it downtown, but it's in the downtown area. It's in the heart of the city, Mile High City, which I think is excellent because that's where a lot of these projects will take place.
Yeah. And it also, we tried to keep it centralized so people from all across Denver could access it.
And people that would be interested in having their students attend can find out through your website as well.
You can contact us through our website.
Excellent. Well, I tell you what, it's again, it has been a great pleasure to have you on. I'm honored and privileged and indebted to you for your time tonight. I'm very excited to talk to another creative person in recovery and have this recovery community of ours in this Denver metro area is more than strong. It's vibrant, and it's made up of so many interesting, educated, and creative people that I'm just proud to say that I'm a part of this recovery community, and would like to thank Melissa. Thank you so much one more time for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. This was wonderful, and the time flew by, and I really appreciate you asking me on your show.
Well, we get to do the thing that I like most, and that's I get to say goodnight and give Melissa her parting gifts from Conscious Conversations. So we're going to get right to that. But before we do, I want to let you know that we've got people from all over the world that are logged in. I want to let you know that you can find out more again. What that website is 5280highschool.org, and reach out and donate, and let them know that you're there and that you care, and you want this to be, and I know it's going to be a successful high school. I know it's going to be a successful. This is good news. This is the kind of news we love talking about. This is good news of what's happening in our community and with our young people. Hallelujah. I'm going to say it again. Hallelujah. So with that said, we're going to get to a song by Dot Sero, and I'm going to give Melissa her parting gifts and get her safely on her way. And I'll come back and we'll close off Conscious Conversations for November 5th, 2017.
I feel like I should take a picture.
Oh, yeah,
I think we should take a selfie.
Let's do it.
Of the studio, if we can maybe.
Yo, roll over
Yeah.
this way.
Okay.
Roll over this way.
Okay, let me see if I can figure this out here. Jeez, there we go.
Okay, you got it?
I think so.
Okay.
I want the
Awesome.
microphone. Ooh, that's good. Ready?
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. I think that worked. Perfect.
Yeah, send it to me, will you?
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, I
Okay,
will.
first things first. This is for the school.
Thank you. I
You're very
really appreciate it.
It's-
This is unexpected. Thank
It's
you
a very
so
it's a
much.
very small token, but
Thank you.
it's from my heart, and
Awesome.
it'll be continued. There'll be more support.
Well,
I
thank you.
promise.
Thank you so much.
And here's my favorite part. You get
Okay.
your official Conscious
Oh,
Conversation.
look at
These were
this.
meant to be
Oh my goodness.
these are meant to be like coffee mugs. But what I have
Ooh.
found is that people are saying they're calling them soup mugs. So
Soup. No, I'm drinking coffee out of this,
awesome.
and I've got one of those.
You got one of
You
those.
gave one to me. I surrounded.
Oh, okay, okay.
This is great.
Terrific.
Soup. I don't know. This is coffee.
Okay. Well, I'm with you. I'm with you, and it'll hold coffee. Believe me.
Oh, good.
So.
Well, thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Well, I'm so happy you enjoyed it. It was great, and what an honor. And man, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
They got the right girl.
I think we're doing pretty good. You're right.
I'll be right. I'll be supporting you. Have a good night. I just have to sign off now and take off. All right. Thanks again. And we are back. I'm back in order to. Well, it's been a great night, and I've really enjoyed the show. This is something that is truly groundbreaking and community changing. Uh, we talk about making a difference in the world, and Melissa Mutana and her vision of this high school that incorporates a program for substance use disorder and a program for helping possibly stave off substance use disorder with our young people, and encourages those who are in recovery and also students that are just regular high school students, all working together in a new concept of project-based learning. This is revolutionary. This is the kind of thing that does make a difference. This is the kind of thing that does change how we view the world, how we live in the world. It creates joy, happiness, innovation, prosperity, and freedom. It's so great to talk about something good news that's happening in our world and in our lives. Please support 5280 High School. Go to their website, 5280highschool.com. We're going to sign off here in just a minute. You know what? We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We're going to sign off with a different song, and that's going to work out just fine. So get ready. Well, it's been a nice night, an incredible night on Conscious Conversations. And I'm just very, very excited to have such an engaging guest on the show, a guest that is, well, making a change, making a difference with her concept of education and learning, project-based learning with 5280 High School. I'm talking about Melissa Mouton and her vision of a high school that is incorporating recovery as a part of its program and so many other things. Thank you, Melissa Mouton, for being my guest this evening. I'm so delighted that you were here. Next week on Conscious Conversations, we're going to have contemporary Christian singer and recording artist Christine Marie. She's going to be joining us on the show, and we're going to be debuting her song that she's released recently for Christian radio and to the world for testimony and witness to her faith and her belief in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and the changes that will make our world a better place. Spreading the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that if you invite him into your heart, how you can be called a child of God, be forgiven through grace, and participate in his unfailing love and presence in your life every single day, every moment of every day. That's the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Invite him into your heart and see what happens. It's an amazing thing, an amazing journey. So we will look forward to having contemporary Christian singer and artist, and recording artist, Christine Marie on Conscious Conversations next week. A special shout out to my soulmate, Sandra. I love you, Sandra. I hope you had a chance to listen in. Remember that I pray better than I play. And you've heard me play. Well, playing is what I love. The Lord God Almighty and Jesus know how much I love to play. But you know what? I love to pray too. So send me your prayer requests for all the people who need prayers, especially those in Texas, in Sutherland Springs, today and tonight. Awero is Dotsero. Well, this next week, we're going to be at our home base. That's right. We're going to be right down at Live at Jack's on Friday night and Saturday night. Both nights, 9 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Now that we are in Daylight Savings Time, I think or we just got rid of it. Whichever it is, we moved the clocks back. So that's what I know about it. We'll be starting at 9 o'clock, and it's going to be a great weekend. So I hope you'll check it out. Go to our website. That is .seroband.com. .seroband.com, and find out where all of our performances are coming up. And our benediction for the night is, may our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who loved us and by his grace gave us eternal encouragement and good hope, encourage your hearts and strengthen you in every good deed and word. Amen. And in the words of Charles Dickens, from his famous story that is in many ways my own story, a story of redemption and reclamation, God bless us, everyone. For Conscious Conversations, I'm Stephen Ray Watts. Spread the good news of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ to all the nations. Boldly go out and proclaim that Jesus Christ is your Lord and your Savior, just as the Apostle Thomas did. For Conscious Conversations, I'm Stephen Ray Watts. Until next week, good night. God bless you. And good night. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook Live. Appreciate all your input. And we're signing off. This time we're doing it intentionally. And signing off on Ustream. Been great to have everybody with us tonight on Conscious Conversations on Ustream here on KUHSdenver.com.